It's a war against forces, dark energy.
Oh damn. Person just lay it out like that.
Money is life now, and it was not that way 100 years ago. So back then, money wasn't life. Family was life. Community was life. We live in a world that community's shattered.
And this is what's happening right now. There is serious spiritual warfare going on right now.
But a lot of people aren't going to survive the times we have coming, bro. They say the future is for those who prepare. And a lot of people aren't preparing.
The price of a gallon of gas set more records overnight.
As a Canadian, like everything is different. And the old playbook, I've really shifted my mindset on like the get rich, buy some land and check out, get off the grid. Like that's just not it anymore.
And just like that, nothing got better. We ended up avoiding all of it, and it was the best we could do. Uncertainty isn't just a sign of instability, it's a sign of the times. These times. You know, sitting at home, acting like any of this is going somewhere, distracting ourselves again, hoping things get better again, falling for it again. Nothing put itself back together to how it should be, and nothing ever will. People near you and who you follow, talking and talking and talking, and it stressed you out. Then it even stressed them out.
This should be an outrage to everybody, but it's not. It's just not, and that's just the signs of the times.
Nothing will ever get better. We are never gonna make it out. We can't even have a normal fucking non-hostile goddamn conversation on any of these issues. Everybody just simply wants to fucking chirp into the wind because they have no power and they recognize their utter powerlessness in the face of unjustifiable constructs that we fucking exist under. And the best possible fucking thing you can do is just be goddamn annoying.
And that's why we're here. Why we're here, why you're here, why I'm a voice on the radio. Welcome back to your man Nightcried FM, skipping whole months of weekly uploads just to bring you the good word of hope. I'm talking to all the internet dwellers, the chair sitters, the screen watchers, and doom scrollers about something that's become a little too damn obvious. That the world ain't getting better and it's only getting worse, and likely to stay that way.
I am the warm blood weight, binding you to other folk. I am the taut string of hatred betwixt you. I am the bond.
But don't you worry, because your friendly neighborhood manchild is also here today to talk to you about video games and the theme of hope. Alright, Cried, what are you on about, man? What do spiralingly depressing world affairs have to do with video games, or did you just want an excuse to talk about your favorite video games so you had to clickbait every conceivable thing to tie into this video essay that I still have no way of knowing will be worth a long-ass watch? Well, I'll tell you. First, I did want an excuse to talk about my favorite games, especially these 4 coming up right now, and there's a film in there too. But second, human beings have been in mad shitty situations in every time period. Every moment in civilization, and in every place in culture. If you went back in time and talked to anybody in any time and place, especially the further back you went, all the most doomed people would have significantly convincing reasons as to why their time period was terrible, and full of reasons to not romanticize it like how I romanticize the 90s and 00s. But they were still kicking. They were still having kids, even if their problems were admittedly a lot more straightforward than what we have to go through right now. One way to look at it is that we're too comfortable. No actual change happens because everyone simultaneously admits that they want things to get better deep down, but that they themselves have too much to lose. As a result, the idea of there being actual progress, the world on every side of the issues, every possible niche and group, all fails to achieve anything just like the others. But beyond that, it's also just a personal thing. Too many overworked people, too tired, just trying to get by. And the ones that aren't are probably just bunking it with their roommates or their parents, or they just want to live a normal life at the expense of legitimate possibilities of change, and peace of mind by eliminating any unconscious optimism in the process that they may have to see a future with themselves in it. So video games are unique in that you're experiencing the human condition. They're not perfect, however. But with some games, you get this extra layer to storytelling that can only be experienced by literally experiencing it. There's an entire subtext to the story that you're missing out on if you just watch the cutscenes and spoil yourself with a ton of games, which is why I picked these 4 games in particular. For the theme of examining hope. So you should know I like to play games a certain way. I always try to play a game on permadeath, with no saving my game, and in one go for as long as I can until I can't go on.
There's a helicopter coming. 3 days from now. At noon, it's my ride.
Is your ride reliable?
Absolutely. That's how I plan on getting out of here.
Not all games are perfect in this regard, so Dead Rising 1 caught my eye. I've played it as a kid a long ass time ago, but I must have hit my head or something because I didn't remember it. So I remembered certain things, and I stuck to certain rules for my return to Willamette Mall that may as well be my first time. Rule number 1. No saving, of course. I keep playing for as long as I can, and if I have to stop the game, then I restart it anyway. Rule number 2. I've known about leveling up in the game, and how it carries over between deaths if you load a save into another playthrough. So no carrying levels. I'd always start at level 1. Rule number 3. This one ended up being dropped as a rule, but at the time when I first started playing, one of my friends actually lied, and I must have misremembered that apparently, in order to get the best ending in the game, I would have to save each and every single survivor, all 40, in one run, from start to finish. Now, if you've played Dead Rising, you know that's not true, but keep in mind, almost all the footage, about 80% of what you're seeing on screen, was recorded with me actually believing hook, line, and sinker that I had to save everyone. People did die in some cases, but I still committed to playing on and on, knowing that as long as I myself don't die, the game isn't over. Interesting, right? Let's get into Dead Rising.
Say, buddy, you mentioned something about research for a story.
That's right. Got a tip that something big's happening.
In a nowhere little town like that? They sure didn't mention anything about it on TV.
Yeah, well, I'm freelance, pal. I don't make my living waiting for the TV to tell me what to cover.
If you played as the world's last vice journalist, covering many wars, and you still cared about something called journalistic integrity while still trying to get the truth out to the public at all costs, caught up in something the government doesn't want you to know about happening in a small town of Colorado with an extreme lid on information getting out, you would be playing as Frank West. While Zombie's story isn't original, the execution of this game's story absolutely is. Taking the helicopter to be stranded in a lawless hotspot that even the government hasn't touched yet for 3 whole days, you would be inclined to think that because you're swole and roided out and able to lift a whole bench to swing with by yourself, that this would be a cakewalk with all the shops necessary to wait out a siege. I mean, it's a zombie apocalypse after all at the mall. But in reality, every path is narrow and easily able to swarm you because of it. Exits are blocked and doors are locked, resources go scarce the longer this goes on, especially with survivors deciding how to not only survive, but cope with the situation and the understanding that no rescue is underway. At least until they meet you, and even then. All of this with the poetic backdrop of a consumerist paradise that is modeled after the peak of its own existence.
What are you guys doing at the mall today?
Shopping and looking for boys. Same.
This may be your home for 3 days, but this isn't your home. Your home is a spot just above this with 4 walls and a roof where every time you rest, you're just reminded of all the shit out there that you're gonna have to come back to, right through the walls.
So why don't you just tell me already? What's going on?
I think you'd better see for yourself. This, my friend, is hell.
You start off at level 1, where you can barely able to take care of yourself, let alone escorting survivors. Because of this, and the controls for attacking zombies so tight, you have to use everything at your disposal to defend yourself. Everything from park benches to dishes to throwing whole trash cans, whatever you can makeshift into clearing crowds. Because of this, plus a 72 hours time limit, you'd be inclined to think that because you're taking on more of a burden on yourself by reaching out to others in an effort to save them, that it just isn't feasible. But cleverly, the only real way to level up in a timely manner is actually by reaching out to others and saving them. You could beeline for the story and level up from fighting bosses that way, but you'd be severely underleveled to deal with them once you get to them. The only other way to reliably give yourself some experience, or PP points, is doing your job as a freelance photographer. And if you can't save somebody to make those level ups happen, your best bet is to take pictures of what has become of the misfortunate survivors.
Jesse?
Somebody has to know what happened here, if nothing else.
Fantastic.
Remember when I said I like to play permadeath? In arcade terms, that's called a 1cc. Fun fact. 1 credit clear. There are multiple save points across the mall and bathrooms, and honestly, getting to them isn't hard at all. But when you're in a straight shot to the end, you're in survival mode. When you're on a 1cc, every little game mechanic, even the small amounts of PP you get from photographing people who came and went, matters so much. All the small moments you share with them that you only realize you take for granted once they're on the ground. As is commonly said, the biggest point of contention in this game that'll make or break people's experiences is the survivor's AI. One way to think of it though is that that's pretty realistic for what it's like to try and save people from anything, let alone a life or death situation. Especially if who you're saving is immunocompromised, elderly and disabled, women, dickhead punks, just anybody who isn't blessed to be an absolute giga chad like Frank, who is burly and ripped. Honestly, it's an analogy for life. And Frank's role in this game has always been interesting to me because he wasn't only meant to represent the average everyman with how ordinary and even arguably unappealing he looks, but originally he was intended to be obese and ugly. They didn't go with that, but there's still that subtext of Frank being more appreciated less for his charm and more for the things that he can do.
Was she hurt?
I offered to help her, but she took off.
Can't really blame her for running from a guy with your looks.
Anyway.
I'm gay.
If you've played this game a lot and pay attention to the cutscenes, you can definitely detect that subtext.
I've covered wars, you know.
He's less charismatic, not very empathetic, and more like a very good man of action. It's hard to feel for the guy, and more for just what he does. He's the very aspect of gameplay in of itself, personified, and he's peak masculinity if you think about it. But he's also just a story of so many guys out there. If you aren't attractive, you better be good at something, or at least reliable, and absolutely looking to working out.
The bomb's over and done with. Brad went after Carlito.
Copy. Report back here, Frank.
Yeah.
That is Frank West. And maybe that's who you are. Starting from level 1, navigating your way through the chaos of what was supposed to be a paradise in such a way that the only reason it couldn't be one would normally be because you're thinking about it too hard and aren't very fun at parties.
What in the hell are you people doing? Run! Quick, move! Get over here! Everyone, move this way! Quick, to the stairs! Move!
you're forced to stick it out alone, and then forced to reach out, and then forced to be stuck cooperating because you're just too weak on your own this very moment. As the clock ticks, you get stronger, more able to not die, and protect others, leading to an incredible feedback loop of success. At this rate, maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to escape a truly doomed situation, walk away from the darkness of it all, and beyond that, find out the truth and put a stop to the darkness around you. Even change some minds in the process. And then, right there, in the middle of your upward motion, at the peak of danger, where the truth you sought out to find so obsessively, so incredibly fixated on at the expense of it all, determined to cut a way out of this endless chaos going on and on, you missed it. And that was how my first 1cc run ended. Just like that.
Hey, Fred! I told you I'd come back for you.
It's Frank. Anyway, listen, we're gonna have more passengers than we agreed on. That's okay with you, right?
Yeah. Whoa! You telling me you managed to rescue all these folks?
Yeah, I guess so.
Jeez. Did you come here to save people or get your story?
It completely and utterly flies right over your head. Suddenly the truth has vanished into darkness. Who knows when it happened? But it turns out you took a little too long. You let people waste your time, and you tried to do everything all at once. You could have done things better, like using the shopping cart anytime you found it to go faster, or better yet, did a little experimenting in the beginning to run faster, to get from one spot to the other in more efficient ways, facing dangers akin to the hard truths you so obsessively sought after, but instead chose to ignore. Somehow you chose to ignore it, despite searching for the truth, thus culminating in lost time and opportunities. I guess not being able to fight personal fears doesn't exactly translate to finding out the truth of everything, does it? Turns out some people aren't meant to be saved, even if it's hard to accept for those who did nothing actually wrong. Looking back, it's hard to say why you even did all this to begin with now, if all you were going to do is lose sight of the truth just when it was in your grasp, realizing that at the most pristine time to have an epiphany that could have changed everything for everyone, and you let it go. What was all that even for? You try to ignore the implications of what those consequences mean, and you know, honestly, it's easy to. For now. Just for now. Now it's only a matter of time until something happens. But you did good, right? Right?
Jeez. Did you come here to save people or get your story?
And that brings us to Mirror's Edge.
Once the city used to pulse with energy. Dirty and dangerous, but alive and wonderful. Now, it's something else. The changes came slowly at first. Most didn't realize, or didn't care, and accepted them. The authorities said the changes, the monitoring, banning, regulating, were for the greater good. But good isn't the same as right.
Unlike the other stories in this video, Mirror's Edge isn't about zombies, and instead talks about how this sort of thing even happens, how we got to this point where I gotta be straight with people and say it's all over. And that the concept of hope should start meaning something completely different because we're past the point of no return. Faith Connors is one of the only main female characters I like more than some male ones. And it doesn't hurt that I have a raging fanboy crush on her. It's a parkour game and most people know it for that. The vibes beneath it are immaculate, and the plot is just about navigating a dystopia that even in its own context is giving up on itself every single day for the people who survive.
Survival is overrated. You need to live a little too.
Hey, you want to come with me tomorrow? Could use the help.
Can't. Drake's got me on a job. Says I've been slacking. Look, I've got to go. Faith, take care.
Jumping from rooftop to rooftop is the only means to contribute any sort of change through uncensored and unmonitored information to and from their clients. It's like if Proton Mail got booted out of the Virgin Islands or something like that, and decided, hey, we still got a service to encrypt your messages and everything. We just jump from rooftop to rooftop now. Yeah, you want to see what that girl's saying about you, man? Alright, yeah, well, it'll be 10 business days. We'll be at your house, right through your window. I hope you like rooftops because this is going to be a reoccurring thing. The story of Mirror's Edge, however, as much as I honestly do like it on its own terms, isn't as important as the ethos it captures in a single line.
Don't you read the news? It's not news anymore. It's advertising.
This line may as well sum up the entire energy this whole game is even running on. Much like Dead Rising, combat is present, but it's not the exact central core mechanic, and you spend most of your time outgunned and running away. Faith's sister is a cop working on the other side who gets framed for the murder of who I assume is the only political candidate who can...
someone who can actually make a difference in this place.
There's no upgrades, no RPG level mechanics, just like the premise of this world. It's a straightforward, straight shot towards the end, with nothing challenging that premise. Eventually the leads you do find to piece things together bring you to the same people, while everyone you love either dies or gives up to save themselves.
Cell? I tried to warn you off. I'm sorry. You've got to learn to let go, Faith. You remember? Like you did with your family. The runners are screwed. Icarus is just the start. And I want to live, Faith, not just survive. Why Pope? His campaign was getting unexpected support, but he got stupid. Started making threats to the wrong people. High-up people.
He found out about Icarus, so they had you kill him.
Him or me.
Mark! I couldn't stop them. They took Kate.
Shit, Mark. Let me get someone, a doctor.
It ain't gonna happen, Faith.
I'm sorry, Mark. I'm so sorry.
No sorries. Just don't let them win.
I won't, Mark. I promise.
Thanks, kiddo.
Personally, I think the ending just ends on a cliffhanger, because while Faith does get her sister,
Can't live on the edge all your life, Faith. Sooner or later, you have to jump.
because while Faith does get her sister, nothing changes. Where do I even begin with Pathologic 2? At the very end, of course. Duh. Where else? Actually, this is the beginning. Because you did fail. Walking through the consequences of your own actions, you notice one thing from all the terrible imagery around you. that none of your friends or family are in any of this. You know why? They're long gone, way before things got bad. You've betrayed the expectations of anybody still alive who could have done something about this. Everything you see feels like you're seeing it for the first time, but that could also be because in the 12 days you had to make a difference, you may not have even paid attention to what was happening around you. It's not that hard to believe, after all. Some people go their whole lives not knowing who they are or what they want until it's too late and they're bitching at you as the new guy at their shit dead-end job. This doesn't seem so different. So, Cried, what the fuck even happened anyway? How did I fuck up this time, Cried? I could explain how it went down, or you could find out for yourself. If you had a second chance, if you could even pick and choose what to do, how would you do it? And why? And would you be sure of anything? Let's find out. Pathologic is Russia's sweetheart. The first game won an award for its time, but it had issues and it wasn't well executed in its own concept. On the topic we mentioned of missing the exit and slamming the accelerator going towards a point of no return in our world, that's also the relationship between the first and second games. It's both a sequel and a remake of the original, or if you want to call it a reimagining, that's totally fair too. Either way, you can definitely start a Pathologic 2. They say that the further one gets from life to death, things start looking a little different. You can tell this from people who suddenly turn to God or believe in some cultural practices like urban myths, paganism. Honestly, just a sudden interest in spirituality is where the concept of hope as we understand it goes to. If your hope of things getting better comes from ignoring harsh realities until they arrive on your doorstep, which is most people, you'll always cling to ignorance until it becomes impossible to run away. You're also more likely to rubber band yourself into spirituality not as an act of autonomy and actual interest, or an act of faith, but because it's a convenient opiate for you. That's what hope as we understand it is. It's supposed to be similar in concept to faith, but faith works in mysterious ways that imply a process beyond our understanding. Whereas hope isn't backed by anything except relentless pursuit of ignorance and bliss. It's, if I never have to think about the possibility of something bad happening, I just won't think of it. It's not happening, so I don't have to think about it. You know, it hasn't happened yet, so I'm going to think about it. It's never needing to deal with something until it becomes a problem and then placating that problem as it comes rather than actually solving it. You can understand now what it means to examine hope, when all anybody ever has to tell you about the things that are clearly happening for the worse is to not think about it. I mention this because the people of Pathologic 2 are the exact opposite of this. I could go into depth about how Pathologic 2 sounds like it was written by a Mongolian drug-abusing schizophrenic living out in the Russian countryside, but even as a joke, that's giving the writing in this game far too little credit for how brilliant and special it truly is. So when I do say that they're the opposite, I mean that everyone you talk to in this game, at least for the first few days, has a subtle sense of urgency about their ideas and philosophies on a premonition they're all getting about what's going to happen to the town. And what's your role in this? Well, you're the son of a doctor, the only doctor in the village.
My dear son, Artemy, I write to you after so many years apart in the hopes that you may find a way to return to us. Something worries me. I fear a difficult trial approaches. I hope that your studies have proven fruitful, and that you have achieved great skill as a surgeon. Such skill might be of use here. I remain the only physician in this town, but know that I am growing old. I need an assistant.
While being half-step and Russian, either bridging or pushing the divide between traditional and modern medicine. Just as you're introduced to the town after all these years, in the same scene that you're reminded that this is a special place is also the same scene where you're caught up in the middle of an angry mob searching to enact justice for someone who was murdered the night before. The town primarily gets its food through trade, and right now, an outside war is cutting it off from the outside world. When you have a whole town that claims to know each other well, encountering a stranger from outside on the same night that someone is murdered, you can imagine this puts people on edge, even after clearing your name, because all it proves is that the murderer is still out there. But in the off chance you or anyone else, gets a knife in the ribs, well, it's still a knife in the ribs. no matter who it's from or why. And this is the one transpiring event of uneasy uncertainty happening in just one day. Unlike Dead Rising, where at best survivors are transparently a means to an end and characterizing Frank's exploits for 72 hours, and at worst, they're psychopaths or just plain burdensome. The towns have a complex social web of a community where you can be locked out of trading for necessary items to stay alive, solely because you are failing their high-trust community. One way or another, getting to the bottom of what's going to happen is going to take a little less and a little more than being able to lift somebody up and throw them to safety. There's a guy selling a revolver for a high price you cannot afford, and he'll only wait 2 days. A disease is spreading throughout the town, and somebody important to the town's survival has gotten sick. As the water pumps start breaking down after a while and food becomes scarce, suddenly having a basic set of morality sounds like the most overrated thing ever when people trust you to come into their houses, stashed with their food and water. Friends all over that need to stay alive to return the favor someday, and relationships so special you have with some that maybe it doesn't matter how useful someone is in the survival to the town if you have to imagine a future without them in it. That's all on top of a legacy you owe your father and competing ideas for what works and what doesn't at getting out of this alive. Which, by the way, there's a lot of walking to stay alive, as you can tell. Unlike most games where the important decisions to make come from you tapping on a button in a menu, and then someone just ends up dead. Pathologic 2's push for you making decisions comes from whether or not you'll exert the time, supplies, and energy. It's absolutely the worst nightmare for the games are art crowd because it actually involves them playing games and actively engaged in making decisions. You know, you would think with how relatably stingy people are in ordinary life when it comes to sharing their resources, and sometimes for no discernible reason other than the fact that they just don't care, Pathologic's reputation for choice and consequence should put it above Fallout New Vegas in that regard. As much as I would like to gush and gush over my waifu, Lara Ravel, onto others. Fun fact, there's this documented phenomenon where children make up their own mythology unique to them. It's like their shared little culture of mythology, and it happens everywhere, but from what I've heard, it's more prominent in places that are struggling. Like homeless children back in Miami in the 90s, believing refrigerators are portals to hell and Lord of the Flies. Pathologic takes that to the extreme, asking what children would do in these uncertain times, right down to writing them as having their own separate factions, and in a lot of cases access to the most useful supplies. It's amazing the things you can do as a child when you don't have an iPad and the ability to join random Discord servers or a Twitter account with thousands of followers that take everything you say as gospel. The kids in Pathologic are full-on Sopranos level of organized, and actually go outside. As it turns out, when you're young and impressionable enough to afford the luxury of hope in its default understanding, you can use your imagination to manifest alien skyscrapers over the town you were born. Not to actually take over the world or anything, just to live it up while you can before mom can't explain why you have to starve to death with no food for the 3rd week in a row. I'd go as far as to say normally in modern stories they tend to avoid depictions of children suffering to certain degrees, but the children of Pathologic 2 have their own little society of 4'2" absolute units, and comparatively may actually survive better than the adults. As far as hope is concerned with children, they get the advantage of bliss, without having any hope. And when confronted with harsh realities, it's their inclination to spin suffering into a mythology this way that I can look back and confirm with some certainty the validity of adolescent mythos despite there being not a lot of documentation on it.
You need a partner, a buddy, a grass snake maybe.
It's worth mentioning in Pathologic's premise that your father found it so important to not just save indiscriminate people from the sandpest plague, but that there's a list of 8 vitally important children integral to the town's future that have to stay alive according to him. So even if you do play this game day to day straight with all of its story beats that can go on indefinitely, sometimes unresolved over the span of several days, taking care of solely yourself and the few people you give a shit about, that just isn't the best strategy, let alone the optimal survival strategy. And you're as likely to shoot a looter in the face and get nothing for it as you are to help somebody and also still get nothing for it. But the children playing out in the street, taking in dumb little riddles and myths, stashing morphine in holes inside trees, and making up hide-and-seek games wearing wolf masks all the way across town? Yeah, apparently one of them is Einstein because he had the extremely rare makeshift cure to the plague laying there on the ground. And that following the story beat goes against every survival instinct in the book. It's like life tries to show you that by reaching out at the world for all of its problems that seem at first glance have nothing to do with you within your realm of daily life, there could be something in it for you, as well as being the much more optimal way of enacting change, for not just yourself but for the world around you. Once the plague starts spreading, it goes from district to district faster than you can run. In my case, I did all I could in my first time playing to do everything all at once, while still trying to retain some morality, but I found myself desperate for supplies and going to dangerous places to loot. The irony of trying to do good for everyone else only to find myself stranded, scavenging the misfortunate simply because my only justification for it is, it's for the greater good that I just so happen to be a part of. And right as I was glad that all those risks I took were starting to pay off, right after talking to my beloved Lara, too. I was lulled into a false sense of security because I was way too laid back and loose about the plague. I ran into danger where I shouldn't have. Suddenly the man from the beginning who offered me my second chance appeared before me. Do you remember what I said about how much I love permadeath in games? Permadeath takes on a whole new dimension when you're deliberately told that you're allowed to go back and change things. Again. But you'll be cursed through every save data you've ever made. Various punishments for failing to see everyone through these dark days. But the reason I died in the first place was so incredibly debilitating that even if I did manage to jump back to a previous save, it would almost certainly have to be at the very beginning because my mistakes diseased me into a curse of a spiraling death loop softlock, where I would die over and over and over again. The theater man himself said exactly what my next course of action was going to be, verbalizing my thoughts, and that was, if this was ever going to be something I'm fated to complete, it would have to be in one straight shot to the end. To the end. Here's a question for you. What happens when your world gives up on you, and then you give up on the world? The night eats the world. At some point, everything got complicated and unsolvable, making you exasperated and stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by annoying-ass people and painful, bitter reminders from top down in society to your everyday life. Every movement, every sound, all obnoxious and exhausting for a world that has manifested into yours. And it's still getting worse. And all you want to do now is just be alone. You just want to get away from it all, and you can't even have that peace of mind with a small fragment from the past to hold on to. People just can't leave you the fuck alone, and friends once familiar to you are foreigners in a world you didn't ask to inherit. Suddenly you wake up. There was no rock bottom like you'd hoped. There was no second act of your life, and things still, magically somehow, still got worse.
Funny?
Night eats the world. Like the best of movies is better watched as half of what it is, which is a slow-paced survival movie about being stranded in the middle of Paris after a breakup with a whole building to yourself, and half is a metaphor and symbolism for you to project onto. It's a good segue to mention that it's like anytime you were alone in something like Project Zomboid, even though Zomboid sucks. And in my case, I found this movie in the middle of my Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead playthrough of the same exact scenario actually. Funny how that works. Same exact scenario as in, my favorite thing to do in this game is start in the middle of the city in a building somewhere like an office tower, a church, etc. As long as I'm surrounded on all sides. Because for me, something like CDDA doesn't hit right when the danger isn't ever present. And it's one of the few things I actually believe that Cataclysm struggles with, is being able to remind you of the danger that lurks beyond every corner. So for me, starting out in the middle of the woods, at least in Cataclysm, isn't ideal for fun. And it's a great way to make you feel like you wasted your time when you die to a single enemy you spent ages avoiding and studying, rather than constantly reminding yourself to be ready for the things that won't stop until you do something about it all around you. Being stuck in an office tower alone in almost exactly the same way as our main man Sam over here, it was easy for me to immerse myself in this movie. Not that I really needed help with that, but it got me deeply contemplating harder than my usual. As I scavenged for limited supplies, braving the dangers and monsters around every corner. I have this thing I do in games where I have a snack on me. Usually it's like sardines and crackers, like summer sausage, sashimi, you know, old leftovers of whatever I got. or that I recently made, like chili, that reminds me of like scavenged cans of rudimentary foods and MRAs. Take a bite when your character eats. That's what I do. And then rum, sake, or gin. Take a shot before and after any danger. And anytime my character drinks in-game, you'll feel like Sam in no time, I promise. You'll feel like Sam in no time, I promise. Not that I needed any help with that. Before you know it, you'll be scavenging supplies, overreacting at every shadow that tickles your ass crack.
Anybody here?
Unsure if you should be shooting at cats or zombies. Making friends with zombies while reminiscing about the past.
Now, you and I are the same. We're alone.
Only this time, it won't be about where anyone failed. It won't be where you failed, or how any of this even happened. Because that doesn't matter anymore. It'll be about how much you miss how things used to be. It'll be like all those days during the lockdown. Or like whenever someone says, hey, remember the past? You know, the 80s and 90s when stuff was affordable? When your jobs weren't going overseas? When you could afford basic necessities for cheap? When AI was science fiction? When you could ignore politics and people talked about apolitical things and had lives? The girls and the guys were cooler. And video games were better, and there wasn't a bug roaming around that makes you allergic to meat that the government does nothing about like everything else, that you didn't have to eat at a Michelin-star restaurant for a nutritious meal, that there wasn't high fructose corn syrup and everything, when, you know, when people were happy. And you didn't need to know anything else, you know? Your family, the women who loved you, your friends, a bright future. As for what happened in my CDDA playthrough, look, I know what you're thinking, okay? But cried. CDDA is an incredibly difficult game, and it's highly unlikely that you even survive this one. It's an incredibly difficult game, and that's when you don't start a scenario in the middle of the city. You couldn't have possibly found any hope, having to escape from a truly fucked scenario where it was impossible just to go down the stairs to the first floor the majority of the time. And that's after clearing out the whole tower. Let alone make it to the parking garage before food runs out and hightail it out of the tower. I don't believe you survived, Cried. You're a fake gamer guy that roleplays and projects his frustrations with the world a little too hard, and things can't be as bad in the world as you're making it. Well, hombre, here's what I got to say to that. I'm not going to tell you whether or not Sam made it out at the end of The Night Eats the World. And I'm not going to tell you whether I made it out of the office building after getting chased by something far crazier than a zombie after making an ass out of myself firing shots into the air out the window. But what I am going to tell you is that I learned something about examining hope that you should understand, about what it means to survive when you're surrounded with madness, darkness, unreliable people, in a metaphorical landscape that isn't real but may as well be. That hope isn't about what's around you. It's not about choosing a new candidate to represent the change you so desire. And it's certainly not about holding on to a past that will never ever come back ever again. It's about holding on to the things that work, bringing them with you to tomorrow. It's about holding on to the things that work, that actually work. Seeing yourself in action, and taking in the people and things that give you peace of mind. It's about mining the bottom of a dark mine shaft for a shining ore that only became what it is because you went down there to get it. Not because it's an ore. Putting yourself to the task of making the decisions every day of who to let in and who to leave out. That extra mile you're willing to put in to make sure nobody ever disturbs that peace you found for yourself and the ones that you love. Even if it means needing to deal with those you love about how to find that peace. And that's what it means to examine hope. Cried here. It's been too long, and I'm sorry this video took as long as it did. I don't know if I'll ever do this again. I started making this video right around September last year, and at first I thought it would be quick, but it turned into something that I wanted to get out no matter what before I moved on to other things. I just really like the subject material a lot. I'm still alive, just going through the rat race like you guys. I just got laid off, so there's that. And if you're new, You want to do me a favor and leave a comment, like, and subscribe? Make sure to hit the bell on all, too, or you won't see my uploads. Be sure to follow me on Twitter as well. I'd like to hear from you guys on what you guys thought about my first video essay. Working on this was way too immersive. So it's like I said, depending on how this goes, maybe I'll do it again, maybe not, we'll see. Happy New Year's, guys, and we'll make it through 2026 together.